Stay or go, everything will be okay. What is that dialogue? What does that mean to you?
Justin, just imagine being in the most chaotic moment of your life and feeling the most peace you've ever felt. What you're referencing actually happened in my near death experience. I was running, this was 2019, running Boston Marathon for charity for the Dreamweaver Foundation. And I woke up in an ice bath, uh, somebody yelling 108. The medic was yelling 108. That was my internal body temp. And after being in the ice bath, I saw I had the reality that I was above my body, and I saw my laying there. And so as I realized what was happening, it was the most peace I've ever felt. And there was this knowing. It was like, man, I should be in fear, or I should be missing something, or I should be like scared. And I wasn't. It was it was magical. The comment or the statement you just made about stay or go, it's all okay, is, I've always heard people talk about seeing a light. It wasn't seeing a light, it was being in the light and all around. And there was no loud booming voices. There was nothing there. It was just pure knowing. And the know was it's all okay. And I was given the option, stay or go. It's all okay. And in those moments, I don't know how long I was there. I don't, at time didn't matter. Uh, was is I saw my boys. I saw the work to do here, and I decided to come back. And that was the most powerful choice I was ever given the chance to make.
Wow. So I have so many thoughts. And so I want to throw something out now, and then I'm going to circle back to how you and I got connected because I want to share this story because you are part of the crew, part of my friends that's going to be coming on regularly to kind of have some of the conversations we have over the phone or Zoom and record them because they're always so good. And I want to share some of this with people. But a couple of the thoughts I had was first off, you mentioned like you saw your boys, and it made me think about the movie Interstellar. And when Matt Damon tries to kill Matthew McConaughey, he says like, one of the last things you see before you die is your family. It's like your mind's last chance to try to get you to survive. And so like it's interesting he said that, and then that's what you experienced. And then I've never thought about it before, and I don't think it was a near death experience, but I do remember a time where like bright light up was seen. And I've been like, I don't even know if I told my parents about it because at the moment it didn't seem like a big deal, but it was in middle school age. We lived in an apartment complex. It was in the summer break. I was swimming with friends, and I vividly remember this kid that was in my class, Devin, his older brother, Squirt was his nickname. I remember jumping off with like the pools we had was like there was a baby pool, a mid-sized pool, and then a deep ass pool. Like it went 12 feet deep. High dive, regular dive. And like we were all just messing around, and I remember him kind of like chasing us, and I jumped off the board. There are no lifeguards, and he immediately jumps off the board right after me. Like you're supposed to wait till the person gets to the side. So I remember him chasing me. I swim to the side, and I remember him pushing me under and then sitting on my shoulders. And like he wasn't trying to drown me, but like I remember, it's crazy I can remember this because I don't have a vivid memory. I remember being underwater, him on my shoulders, and feeling like the way he had my shoulders, I couldn't even like move my arms to try to push him off. I don't know why I didn't think to swim deeper, but then I remember kind of being scared a little bit, not knowing when he was going to let me up, knowing he wasn't trying to hurt me. And then I do feel like I remember like seeing the beginning of light, and then he got off me. I came up and like I got out of the pool and was like kind of upset, and then went back and played more. I didn't even process it at that time. And I've remembered that story a few times over the years, but as you were sharing, when you talked about the light, like I remember seeing a little bit of light. And I don't know if that was maybe consciousness like going away or what it was, but there was no voices. I didn't pass out or anything like that, but I may have been close to a near death experience, and I'm glad I didn't have it. So I wanted to share those couple things real quick, and then circle back to the experience, and then on the other side of that, like how does life change after you're presented the option to stay or go, knowing that everything is going to be okay either way, and choosing to stay, which I'm thankful for, because I would have never got to know you. I knew who you were, but I've never got to know you. Like, how did life change on the other side of that?
I don't think you can go through an experience like that and not change. Or if you do, um, I think you missed the point. I've told a lot of people that I must have just been stubborn. Uh, that was the way that the universe and God had to just shake me and be like, "Hey, there's a better way, and a better way of living, of showing up, of who I am, of the dad I want to be, the husband I want to be, the friend I want to be, the professional I want to be." And so I wish I could tell you though, the next day I was like completely new person. Uh, the next day, what I did is I got on a plane because the docs all told me I was okay. Like crazy story. They put me in an ambulance. I had made the decision to live, or I knew I was going to live. So I had zero. I mean, I was pretty much like ecstatic, almost party. And in the ambulance, I told, sorry, I'll be a little graphic here, but told the medic, I said, I got to throw up. And she bag, and I like still scurrying around on the way to the hospital. My kids and my wife were at the finish line waiting for me. And then I know that they know something's going on. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. But I tell her that, she hands me the bag, and I pretty much purge, or that's what I know that it was. It was just like purging like energy and bad, whatever I needed to get rid of. And I do that, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm done." And she's like, "No, you need to keep that." And I just turned to her and I'm like, "No, I'm gonna live. Like, just sit down, relax. I'm gonna live." Get to the hospital, Justin. They asked me for my insurance card, and remember, I just made the choice to live, so I'm like happy. And I'm like, "Yeah, I carry my insurance card with me all the time, especially when I run." And uh, they they put me in the like a waiting room in the ER, in a bed, give me a heating blanket. I had just had a heat stroke. They give me a heating blanket because I my body had now gone chilled and cold, um, and they never admitted me. And so I don't find till a few days later just how serious it was, just because, just like you shared with your story, right? You kept playing, had an experience, you were over it, you kept playing. I didn't realize until 2 days later, the head medic of the Boston Marathon called me and asked me where I was, and he was going to come see me. I was like, "Well, dude, I'm in Nebraska." And he was like, "Well," he freaks out, tells me all these tests I need to get. And then reality set in. It was like, whoa, this was really, I'm just not tired. There's more to this. And over time, what I realized is it was like a nervous system reset. So on the physical side, it was pure nervous system reset. Like my completely reset. And then on a like a mental side and spiritual side, it was also. And so from a physical side, I was tired. I mean, it was 15 months of recovery there. And also on the spiritual side, it was that plus of asking myself hard questions. Can I? Do I want to? Do I have the capacity to? And like, what do I really want? And even asking the question of why, like, why did I make that choice? And so on the other side, I mean, the other side was 15 plus months away of really getting in, going deep, and asking myself those hard questions. And thankfully, in that 15-month period, I had a lot of great glimpses along the way thanks to my kid, wife, and amazing friends that really helped me just keep going and knowing that I made the right choice. And the why was more than just because this is a fun life or there was a lot of
I'd like to think that part of the why, you didn't know it at the time, was so that, like, you and I could meet. Again, I'm gonna share more about our relationship and how important you've been for me in the last couple of years, but I wanna defer that. Wasn't planning on it until you talked about the vomiting, which I love that you try to be so polite. Like, I'm gonna be a little graphic. You threw up in a bag. Like, that's not graphic. Like, I thought something good was coming along. But I'm and you may not be able to remember, but we're so I love the imagery, as weird as it is, of throwing up in the bag. And the way you positioned it is, it was like you were purging. Like, your body was physically purging, but also the representation spiritually and life wise of, like, okay, so my question is, was that like a purge of other things? So were there things pre-heat stroke that maybe 15 months later, when you processed everything and you were better physically, were there things that you purged from life, you know, in with that vomit bag, whether it be physical or
yeah.
not?
I mean, the list goes on. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, there was there's actually it's actually staring right at me, so I'll just show it to you. Uh, like this is how I decided to start living my life. And the reality is everything we do, everything we do in life, I believe, we make decisions. And also, we get to make a decision on whether or not we're going to sacrifice or and if we're making that sacrifice, are we doing it with intention? And what's
Hmm.
amazing is as I say sacrifice with intention, my 18-month-old just tried to run into the room. And
I heard Roman. What's up,
Roman's
Roman?
Roman just got pulled out by mom, but he wouldn't be here without the heat stroke, right? And so this whole
Hmm.
notion of sacrifice with intention, and what I realized, Justin, is I was making a lot of sacrifices, whether it was work or just time away or always trying to get ahead, whatever that define that as, or being a human doer versus a human being of being like, oh, I'm going to find happiness and I'm going to find joy by doing more because that's what others expect from me. And just taking a step back and being like, what's the life I want? And on a deeper level, like I believe, and we've had a lot of conversation about this, but I believe we chose to come here in this time, winning the genetic lotteries and all those things to be a human right now. I think we chose to come for a specific reason and a purpose. But what it was is like taking back the veil and saying, "Oh, there is a why here." Now, do I specifically could I tell you exactly what that why is? No, I think I'm a lot closer today uh, to what that why is, and I keep being driven towards it of helping people. And quite honestly, Justin, I've told my story a few times. Almost every time is in a really small group, and so this is the first time I'm telling it broadly. And so, thank you, just asking the question.
Well, thank you for sharing it. And your small group might be the size of my audience right now on the podcast, but this thing's gonna live forever, and one day there's gonna be millions of people that hear this story and be inspired by it. So, no, I'm thankful that you were willing to come on and talk about it because it's a big life experience, and it gets into areas that sometimes people are uncomfortable with, like the idea of, does our soul choose to come down and incarnate to learn a lesson? Like, I grew up Catholic, so growing up, that's nothing I would have ever considered. But just going through my own life and meeting people like you and questioning and learning and reading, I'm like, and then reflecting on myself and things that I've always known and lived by that I don't think anybody told me. It's almost like, well, maybe this isn't my first go round, and maybe I've taken with me things I've learned and brought into this life. And like, just if you've never seen, I know you have, but if you're listening or watching, if you've never seen the Disney movie
Oh,
Soul, like go
yeah.
watch it and watch it with an open mind of what might be possible because in some beliefs, in some research, like I read a book, Journey of Souls, that talks about this. Like it basically describes what happens in soul. I don't think the movie says like you they made a choice to come down, but basically it's like soul school. And you have all these little souls, and then they come down to earth, and then when they're done, they go back up there. And like there are books that people share that as their experience and their soul communicates. So to me it's really interesting and fun to read all these different things and try to figure out. But I also know it goes against so much of what people have believed and have been taught that like not everybody is comfortable talking about it publicly and putting it out there. So I'm glad that you were willing and able to come share. I want to go back real
Can I
quick for if you're listening and not watching, the sign that prompted that part of Aaron's conversation said sacrifice with intention. And Aaron makes these wood signs every year. He sent me one last year for my word of epitome, and I have it on my desk in my work office. But that's what he held up. That's staring at him every day is sacrifice and intention. And this is why these conversations I want to record with my friends like you, Aaron, is because all you knew we were going to talk about was Boston Marathon, and you knew I was going to start you with the quote, and that was it. And here we are getting to a point where I want to hang on the sacrifice with intention and really focus on the intention because one of the things that I have grown to realize with this concept of the authentic life is that we have these versions of ourselves that we want to be, that one day we may grow into it or we think we want, and there's things we want to do, but we can't always have everything the way we want it to because, for example, my authentic life is blending with four other authentic lives in my family unit, let alone everybody else around me. And so there are things that would fit into an authentic life for me, but I am making an intentional decision not to do it. I am okay. For me, I am okay with people not fully embracing or embodying everything of their authentic life that they want because they're choosing not to. Example I always give, I'm in Indiana. I would love to be in Encinitas, California. Like I can make that happen. That could be a possibility. But I am making an intentional decision to not be there because of my family unit, what's best for my boys right now, what's best for Ange right now, what's best for us as a family. While I would be happier in the sun every single day in 70-degree weather, my family wouldn't. And right now, that doesn't make sense. So I've made the conscious decision. So I'm not being inauthentic. I'm not compromising my authentic life because I've made that decision. Now, if I never made that decision and I just said, oh, I can never afford to live there and marked it up and never did it, then I think if you're not making that conscious decision, like that's where I have a problem. But if you're not doing something that you would like to and you know why you're not doing it and you're at peace with that, then stay in that corporate job because it gives you the benefits and other things and not follow your passion right now because that's not right now. And if you know that, I'm cool with that.
you just define sacrifice with intention, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. In other ways. I've never framed it that way myself, but it is
it
it
is
is
that,
that.
right? And it's a conscious choice because you mentioned a few of my favorite books, and actually, um, Soul came out. I think it was a year or two after, um, and I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas time it came out. I actually watched it with my kids, and it was actually about that time where I was still in that I was still in a roller coaster period of recovery. And my oldest son, his name is Madden. Um, he, man, I was sitting at the kitchen table and I was struggling. Out of the blue, Justin, he goes, "Dad, the the marathon, the heat stroke, that was the best thing that ever happened." And I'm like, it took everything in my power to be like, "What the? How are you saying that?" And in that moment, I asked why. And he came back and he said, "Well, you're more present. You're you're here. You play with us. You know, you're around more." And all I could do as I was crying, all I could do was give him like a huge hug. And just one of those moments, it was like, whoa, maybe that's one of those lessons I came back to. What mattered to him most? What mattered to my wife, my kids? And so, like, as you say, sacrifice with intention, or you give that story. That's what really comes up for me. It's like, what's the why behind it? And I think we all innately know it. And you ever had one of those moments where you just know what to do, and you're like, "Who? Where did that come from?" Right? You know, so I started calling it nudges because, like, when it's a nut, when you feel like it's more than just intuition, when it's a nudge, like if I'm on an edge of something and I get nudged a little bit, it's hard not to take that first step, or it's hard to take that action. So I love to frame it as a nudge because when I feel that, or I say like, "Hey, I should text Justin today. I wonder how he's doing." How many of those voice notes and texts have we sent back and forth, right? And it's like, well, all right, I'm good with it, because it usually tends to be at the exact.
Yeah, now we get into like quantum realm of like, okay, like we're pinging each other before we physically do it in the quantum space, and that's why like you text me as I'm texting you type of thing. Like it happens. Like the more aligned I am, like when I'm really dialed in, spirit, mind, body, like that stuff happens all the time. And I joke sometimes, like it's almost like being Neo in the Matrix. It's like it's not, but it's so many of those things happen, and like those are the things I use. I give myself freedom, which I'm going to start pulling back out of, like maintaining my alignment. So meditation, yoga, weights, journaling, all those things. Like if I really need to dial in, I don't miss. Every day I'm doing it. But then I give myself the wiggle room to like, okay, today we went to get coffee and donuts for breakfast and I got to bed a little bit late. So I didn't meditate this morning. Like I can go days without meditating and still be okay. But when those synchronicities start to slow down and my intuition doesn't speak as loud, or maybe some things begin to happen that I don't really want. Not that everything goes perfectly, but as these things start to happen, I realize, oh, I'm getting out of alignment. Let me dial things back in and let me get the synchronicities coming back and getting these clues and cues and the doors magically opening for me by dialing myself in. So yeah, the nudges are like they're really cool and they show up in the most interesting, like the conversation you had at the table. Like how old was he when he said that?
So he's 15 now, so I think he was 9.
So like the fact that he used the word "you're more
Yeah.
present," like that wasn't
No.
him. That was God speaking through him. Because a 9-year-old doesn't know that. Like a 9-year-old knows, but may not be able to vocalize what presence is. But they know that you're around more, you're playing with us more. But for him to use that word and then go into 9-year-old language, like that present word, that's a nudge. That's a more powerful comment. And like they used him for like God used him for a second and then let him go back to being the 9-year-old and talked about playing with you more and those
Yeah.
types of things. But like that word is too
Well,
powerful.
and I mean, we have an 18-month-old. I said it already. Roman wouldn't be here without the experience of the heat stroke and just the becoming of who I be, and having a new set of eyes raising a young human, a beautiful soul. I mean, you see how close they are. You see they are not far from the veil. And going back to what you just said of, hey, there's different moments where, you know, you meditate some more or you meditate less and you go up and down. Well, is this world just not full of distractions? Right? And like there's money distractions, there's personal distractions, there's about anything that you can add to it or that we think is important. It's like, what's our why? What am I here for? And what can I do on a daily basis? And a, a book that I absolutely love is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. one of the phrases he uses in there is the hypnotic rhythm. And I think there is so much about that phrase. And the first time I read it, it hit me hard of like, okay, what are the things that I'm doing in my life because others do it or the expectation is I do it? And start to look at those things and you pull back and be like, huh, I'm doing that, but I don't really like it. Or I'm doing that and it doesn't align with my life. Like I love the notion that you have of aligned life and it's so true. Like there's some things that if it was just me, I'd probably make some different decisions. But from a family perspective, you've sacrificed with intention for the right thing at the right time. Did you hear Roman yelling too for me?
I did. That's why I smiled. Yeah, I love it. And that's staying in. Like that's the beauty of this. It's so awesome. To be talking about him and then him yell like that. Like those are the things that I think people just
Yeah.
dismiss. And like so maybe he heard you say his name, but I also think that we're talking about the importance of him and him being close to like, and then here he is just innocent as can be. Dad's on a podcast and he's in there just, he yelled dad. I heard him yell daddy and then is talking. So like, yeah, we can chalk that up to coincidence or that could be a little kind of wink from God of like, hey, everybody listening, like Aaron's talking about this little boy. Let me have him vocalize himself
Yeah.
at the same time. Like I maybe it's me being naive and maybe me wanting to live in a world of wonder. I'll choose to live in a world of wonder and be at awe and things like that and have them mean more than what they really should be just because I think it makes life way more fun.
I'm right there with you.
Speaking of like the why and stuff, have you heard of north and south nodes? I think that's what they're called. I looked it
I
up real
haven't.
quick. All right, so I'm more into astrology than I realized I was. So I had Daisy, my friend Daisy O'Brien on, and we talked about gene keys, human design. You turned me on to gene keys first. Um, and like in that episode, I shared that the first time her and I talked just through getting connected through a community, came up like, are you into astrology? And I was like, no, not really. And I'm thinking about like, I can't tell you I'm Aquarius. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know. And like retrograde and all that stuff over my head. I was like, but I have done this like human design and gene key. And she's like, oh, well, you're way into astrology. You just didn't even know it. So I'm in more into astrology than I realized because I totally buy into those. But when I was in Arizona last week for the Integrated Wealth Advisor program I'm going through, we had a retreat. My good friend Jorge, his fiance was there, Melissa. And for my birthday, she did a tarot card reading for me, which I've never done that before. And I'll share real quick just a wink that was really cool. So tarot cards, she shuffles them up, has me touch the deck. I let her pick them. I think I told you this already, but I gotta show the audience. She flips over 3 cards. The first card, and that's the only one I'll go into, was the hummingbird, which I've had some cool experiences with hummingbirds. One of them was with Jorge last year at Sedona. We get to the top of Snoopy Rock, and it's just me, Jorge, and Sam and Nas, my 2 friends that we always go. And there's this hummingbird up there. And it's just flying around like with us. It gets like right in Nas's face and stays there. And it wasn't like it was passing. Like the hummingbird was there with us. And I was like, oh, Jorge, remember that hummingbird, experience. But then I look and the number of the card was 44. It was my 44th birthday. So on my 44th birthday, the first card she pulls is 44. Hummingbird meets joy. The story continues. The next morning before I go to class, I have a client call who needs something. So I call them before I go to my class. I'm standing on my balcony because it's nice outside in Arizona, talking to him, and a hummingbird flies right by. Like coincidence. All right, if you want to live life and be a skeptic, then fine, it's a coincidence. No, it was not a coincidence. It was a continuation of that experience the night before and a reminder to seek and find joy. Like that's what that meant. But the reason I share all that is Melissa asked me if I'd ever heard of north-south nodes before, and I said no. And before I left, she did mine. Same thing as gene keys and everything. Date of birth, time of birth, location. It pulls all that information. And the south node is what you've brought from past lives, like the lessons. And then the north node is what your soul's lesson is to learn here. And I don't remember everything of the south node. A lot of it did sound good, but I thought it was interesting that the north node for me was to learn how to pour into others, serve others without neglecting
Wow.
myself, which I thought was really interesting because like I do a lot of times put others before myself, and pour into others. And it was talk about doing that without being resentful. And I don't feel that way very often, but there are a lot of times where I'll go through a period of a lot of giving, which I enjoy doing. And then every once in a while, I'll be like, man, I just like, I wish somebody would like give to me. So I do feel that sense of resentment, but the way my mind works is like, as soon as I feel that, I'm like, I got to find something positive because if I stay here, bad stuff is coming. So you should check out North Node. I'll try to find the website. I'll ask her what the website is. I'll put it in the show notes. So if anybody wants to dive into that and see, I'll be honest, the North South Node was not as like holy shit as Gene Key and Human Design was, but it still was pretty cool, and I could see that. Now I don't know what it means like when you learn that lesson, if that's like when it's time to go back to school. So now I'm kind of like, well, do I just want to delay learning that lesson? Like I know what I need to be moving towards, but don't let me fully learn it so where I don't have to learn it because then that means it's back to school. And I don't know if
Well,
I
and
want that yet.
whether it's so Gene Keys and what Richard Rudd and his team have done is just it's just because it's
Mm-hmm.
so consumable. I really
Mm-hmm.
but just for like I grew up very Christian family. I still like believe in the principles. I was always a very curious person. Like, what does that mean? Why? Over time and through this experience, Justin, I really found out that I'm a seeker. I have a tattoo right here that says seeker on it. Um, and the my my recommendation uh, or invitation, I'll make it an invitation to anyone, is you may hear keys or you may hear um, human design or you may like just any of these things. And my question is, okay, is it a no because of dogma, or are you willing to embrace your curiosity, see if it resonates with you, and then make the decision for yourself? I feel like the world, us all, would be in a much better spot if we do our own thinking and me. Like, what? Oh, does that hit or not? I mean, I'm open to all of these, and I've done a few of them that I'm like, nah, nope, no, thank you. And I mean, I'm staring at the Eagles right behind you, and you're uh, that's one of the signs that you see regularly. And every time I see an eagle, I think of you. And the eagle, like going through, like a few years ago, we went through this process and, as a family, and came up with a mission statement and individual colors, all those things. It was an awesome experience. And actually, we just talked about this not too long ago, and I put mine down as eagle. And then a few years later, I was actually with a Native American shaman, and he did like a spirit animal reading on. And have you ever been in an experience? I'm telling you to be curious, right? I'm telling you to be like open to things. But have you ever been in an experience where you're like something? Well, he went through the first time and realized he'd never gotten this or had this animal come up before. So he just started from scratch without telling me because he didn't want me to feel weird or anything. And so, right, Justin? And he comes after the longest period of time I could possibly uh, believe for this. He goes, "All right, I've never had this one come up," and I'm like, "Oh, great, I'm the lucky one, right?" Uh, and he goes, "Your spirit animal is an alpaca," and I was like, "What the hell? Like alpaca? Like, come on! Like, what does that even mean?" And then over a period of time, I was like, "Huh, I resonate with that." But it was curiosity, and it was like, what's the meaning, right? When you get beyond, what's the meaning, and how can you integrate it into your life, and how can it be of use and a benefit to you? Uh, it's a much more fun way to live, and also at the same time, it keeps you curious.
I wrote about this a long time ago, and it's been a while, but to me, exploring your curiosity, I think is a win-win. And so like, and also I don't think Gene Keys and Christianity or whatever religion, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like, it, I think you can have your faith and read a Gene Key and be like, oh, that really does describe me. Like, who's to say that Gene Keys actually can't be a part of like a religion? Like it's not in the church, but doesn't mean it can't be a part of it. But the curiosity part, the way I look at it is explore other things. Like I've really enjoyed reading about Buddhism and learning other religions. And I've always been curious. I remember my curiosity growing up. I went to Catholic school through fourth grade. We went every Sunday. Like that's what I grew up and knew. But I always remembered just questioning, like, how do we know that that word's true? How do we know that like this is what? And I know that that's part of faith is you believe it, and I totally respect that. But like, how do we know that this wasn't changed through the years because of people in power? And then like later in life, when I started kind of going through this wake up, I remember, I don't know if it's true or not, and this is on an old podcast too, but it was New Year's and I saw a thing on Instagram, which I'm embarrassed to say, but it was like, quit saying Happy New Year in January. The new year doesn't start until I think
Yep.
it's March. And here's the reason why. It's that way back when one ruler was following one calendar, so he changed it. He's like, why is October the 10th month of the year? The prefix oct is 8. And it's like September is the same thing. Like they're all off by 2 months. And that was like my moment of like, yeah, like we just grow up not questioning that, but we all know that oct is 8, octopus, 8 arms. October, 10th month, and no one questions it. And the whole reason that it was some guy in power decided that his calendar was the right one, and we put that in there. So who's to say some guy in power didn't have, pick your favorite religion and your holy word, change it to align with something that he wanted people to do, knowing that people are going to follow it, not question it. So like I always had that unknown, that question, but again, also knowing that faith means you just trust that and you follow it. And I think it's important. I mean, spirit is number one. I think it is important to have a belief system. I don't care what it is, that you believe that there's something bigger than yourself out there and you are a part of something bigger for a purpose.
Well, and that right there, Justin,
But
that is the biggest gift from my experience, from my end.
mhm.
No one could ever talk me out of what you just said. Like I felt it, I experienced it, and I know someday I'm going back to it. And how do I make this life amazing for my family, for those around? How do I serve? How can I help others? How can I even share with them in such a way that maybe gets them closer to the veil or helps this life be whatever they came here for? And I can do that for one person, it's worth it. If I could do that, and just it's those synchronicities of how can I show up? How can I serve? Do I think that I'm going to be able to change anyone? No, but they can change themselves with the right invite and by being a part of.
I think experience is the best way for people to learn, not to be like taught at, but to experience. On the win-win, going back to that real quick because I want to finish that thought. So let's just say you're curious and you go explore and let's just continue with religion. You're studying a different religion. Like the win-win is one, you learn that maybe you actually believe something else, and the reason you believed one thing is because that's what you were told to believe and you grew up, but something else resonates with you more, and now you can pursue a path that is more true to you, that aligns with what you believe on the inside. So that's a win. Or you explore this new way of thinking and believing and realize that it only makes you more convicted in what you already believed. So like I don't see how exploring and learning and opening up to other possibilities brings a bad situation. You either learn something new that opens your horizons and brings you to new things, or you get conviction in what you already believed and you believe it even more and you're stronger in it. Like what's the harm in learning? And then in through that learning, you open up to understanding people a little bit better, which would make life a lot better as a collective if we understood and respected people rather than just like being narrow minded. So I wanted to button up that the win-win of exploring curiosity. Like I see no downside in doing it. Um, but I want to, as we kind of get close to the end, I do want to go back. I said I was going to talk about how like I would like to believe that part of the reason you chose to stay obviously is the family and the wives, and so Roman could be here, but also like so you and I could connect. So I don't remember what year it was. It's been a couple years since we've known each other, but I'll never forget the way we got connected was you sent me a DM on Twitter back when I was active on that, off of one of my
Mhm.
daily notes. And I remember being really intimidated to respond because I knew who you were because of your role at Carson. And like I knew you were, really good friends with really close to Omani, high up at Carson, big company in our profession, really well respected. I'm what do I have to offer this guy? And like why is he reaching out? I know he's not reaching out to like recruit me to Carson. So what is this like what do I have to offer? So I let that DM hang for a little while and I almost wasn't going to respond. And then I finally did. We set up a call, and as soon as we hopped on the call, like I was totally like not nervous and so glad that I did because like it was almost like we knew each other already, which was really cool. So like that was cool. But in the following of us connecting, that was in the time when I was kind of, I was growing and learning. You put me onto Gene Keys, but one of the things that I think you've been really important in my life about is me and this idea and this focus of maintaining my independence. And I honestly believe that like you have my best interest at heart when you give me advice and you give me perspective and exploring, changing RLS wealth and joining a firm and not being sure and me thinking about independence already and you just highlighting for the authentic life and for the things I love to do and for my messaging, like independence is really important because when you become a part of something bigger, there's a even if they love who you are, there's a little bit of restriction on what you might be able to see. Like I remember there's a book that I shared. And you're like, I could never share that book on my LinkedIn feed. It was actually the author's making his
Yeah.
rounds right now on podcasts. It was the one about LSD and the universe or something like that. And the gentleman did a bunch of LSD trips and like talked to consciousness and everything. And you're like, I could never share that on my LinkedIn
It's a
feed. And I just,
super fascinating book. He actually spoke
mhm.
Heartland Gathering. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's so interesting. I heard him speak, and then you posted that, and I was just like blown away. And and I
uh,
remember our first conversation. I was going through the airport in Omaha, and I actually had to sit down because I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I'd followed you for a long time. I had always enjoyed your writing, and so selfishly, part of telling you, like, "Hey, stay independent, be you, be able to share what it is that's on your heart," is because I've always been such a fan, and I would think that that's
mm,
part of your magic and your reach, and even Justin, you being one of the first in our profession to be like, "No, I'm gonna dress differently at conference. I'm gonna show up differently at conference," because what we need that and there's very few in our profession with that level of confidence, and the ability to be who they are in such a way that reaches and meets people where they are to help them. And luckily, I spent the last 15 years being around one of them in our profession, Omani, and, you know, I shared a lot about heat stroke. There was time in my this is we talk about synchronicity. We talk about things that matter the most. There was a number of times in that 15 so months I was in recovery, or when I was, like, in my room, dark room, uh, and, trying to recover and doing everything I could. I didn't wanna talk to I didn't wanna do anything. And if I gave you, like, the 4 hardest days that I those were the 4 days that Omani showed up on my doorstep, said, "Hey, we're gonna go for a walk." And I was like,
Mm.
hell no. I actually told him other words. I was like, no, I'm not walking. He was like, yeah, you need to go for a walk. And we'd go walk the neighborhood, and sometimes we wouldn't talk. Sometimes um, we'd have a great discussion, and that sacrifice with intention actually happened on one of those walks. Like we were just talking, and it's like, whoa, one of these life lessons they had to pull out of me, but just knowing that I wasn't alone, right? That somebody else was with. I mean, so the synchronicities, the who we surround ourselves, and I couldn't be more thankful for the connection that we've created. Uh,
Mhm.
you, my friend, absolutely. Yeah. Uh, sometimes you've helped me in ways you don't know. And some of those are through your writings, and other times it's through voice notes and text.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to like turn this into me getting compliments, but I will take the flowers. As uncomfortable as it is sometimes to receive kind words, I appreciate that. But I do think that like we do get connected with people at just the right time, for reasons that don't reveal themselves. And I definitely think that like that was our connection. That's why it is that way. So I'm looking forward to having you back on more conversations, just because, like I said, the whole reason I wanted to do these types of shows was I talked to some amazing people and we have awesome conversations. And I don't want every single one of our calls to be for everybody, but I think there are things that you and I talk about that need to be circulating to help people make connections and learn. And obviously, not all of us want to have to go through a near death experience. So there were lessons that you glean from it that you can share with us that hopefully we can avoid, a near death experience to learn. We can learn through Aaron's near death experience and save ourselves 15 months of figuring all this shit out. But some of us out there, we're going to have to go through that. And I think one of the things that maybe we can dive into to kick off the next time we do this is, like we've talked about this before. My belief that the lessons are we're learning the lessons are being taught to us as we go, and sometimes they're quieter and they're easier and we miss them, and that like the lessons have to get louder and louder until we learn them. And so like a near death experience is the loudest it can get. I don't know anything louder than a near death experience. So like looking back, like were there things that you were missing, experiences that when you look back like, oh, like if I just would have listened then I could have avoided Boston. And you know, you had to have Boston for a reason. So there really was no avoiding it. But I do think that if we move with more intention and more awareness, and we are looking for lessons, I do think that we can maybe avoid some of the suffering that we end up going through. Because I think the only way God can teach us lessons we're missing is to get louder, like I said. And to me, louder is not kinder. It's not more fun. It's more suffering to get the attention. Like that's what gets our attention is suffering, not
Yeah,
joy.
sometimes that nudge needs to be a shove. What I love is we're both in finance, both love finance, helping people. We haven't talked about it at all on this call. And I think so often, like we think about the distractions of life or the ways that we are distracted so that we're not focused on the right thing. And to me, it's like, why is the work that you do, why is the work that Carson Group does so important? It's because when we can help people find their freedom or find their aligned life, and even if they don't achieve it yet, but they know and they have confidence that they're on the path, what if that allows them to eliminate one of the distractions so they can focus on why they're here? Powerful, right? That's when these conversations can maybe start to take hold on, oh, I have a little bit of comfort or I have a little bit of confidence in this life that I'm living. Now I can open up the aperture and have some more curiosity and dive in. So I think that there's so many things that we can do, but it's also really important to just take the next action always.
I love all that. And here's why we don't have to, being both in finance, why we don't have to talk about money right now. because this stuff is what actually matters. And if people figure this stuff out, money takes care of itself. Like, I know that that is hard for people to believe, but I've witnessed it with clients. I've witnessed it with myself. I've observed it in others, that more clarity on who you are and why you're here and what you're supposed to do brings a lot of clarity to finances. And I'm really interested now, right now, in like consciousness. And I say elevating consciousness. I know consciousness is not on a lateral scale, like it's a state of being, but like the way we see it is you level up in consciousness. Like, I don't think you can be operating at a high level of consciousness and have bad relationships with money. Now, doesn't mean you're rich. There's a lot of rich people who have a lot of money but are operating in low consciousness and still have a bad relationship. And there are a lot of people who don't have a lot but are high consciousness and are happy. You look at like, Gandhi and like people, Mother Teresa, like they have no money but their consciousness is so high and they're happy. And so I think there's a balance for us and just average everyday people, that if we can elevate our consciousness by connecting with ourselves, then the financial side of things become a lot easier. It's funny. There's a brand that I like, clothing brand, P and Co. This one, like, I love the style. I love them. Their clothes are great. One day I would love to collab with them. Like, I put that out there as like a creative collaboration. Their brand is a mindset for purposeful living. So even their little thing aligns with me. But they had a really cool commercial that they did for, I think, maybe the summer release. And I was like, oh, I want to recreate that. And with the recreation that I was going to do, theirs was a guy leaning up against a old convertible, reading a newspaper, and he just sets it down and walks off. He doesn't say anything. And like my commercial that I wanted to shoot, and maybe one day I'll still do it, was same thing, leaning up against a car. I have a newspaper, and then like I noticed the camera, and then so I would like look up at the camera and be like, oh, this right here, this is just distractions. And I would just crumple it up and throw it and say, the answers you're looking for are right here. And then I would just like walk off. But I never recorded. I'm like, I need to record that. Part of me doesn't want to record it because I'd feel cheesy doing it. But like, I thought it'd be really cool to take this commercial, tweak it to be my own, but deliver like the message that I believe is that all of the outside stuff, it is just noise and distractions. And that like all of the answers that we all seek first start with from within. And then once you find them within, I think you can find more answers and do things on the external, but it all starts on the internal. And it is distraction. And it's crazy to see how the distractions can just grab a hold of some people and just totally take over.
I'm a believer that we can either live heaven on earth or hell on earth. And it's our choices, our actions, and our thoughts that create it. And thoughts be like, my boys hear that every single day. Thoughts become things. How you show up is the results you're going to get. And yeah, these are all lessons that I'm really thankful that I was given, get to share with them, with myself. Because sometimes, Justin, there's hard days. And I once had somebody tell me, show your kids your clouds. And so if there's a hard day and you're like, hey, I had a hard day, this happened, this happened, this happened. Do you know how many are now coaching me the same way that I try to coach them? What pisses me off is they use the same words that way. But that's the joy in this. It's if we attack this life that it's a game, we're here to play it. I think we can have a really good time and get more.
Man, you're preaching to the choir, which is why we have these calls. All right, man. Well, I will let you get back to your day and go see Roman, since I haven't heard him for a little while. So I'm sure he's craving some time with his dad. But I do seriously want to thank you for telling your story, coming on and sharing that vulnerable moment and what you learned from it and the vulnerability in there. And also thank you for being my friend, being one of my biggest supporters, and being a part of this journey with me as well. I look forward to our next one. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on this one, and thank you for the ones that are coming.
Amen. Thank you.